Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's weekly notice with Andy Ngo. We are now on episode 29, and today is the 13th of October. Please leave your questions and comments for me throughout the episode during the live stream. I will get to it and I'll give you periodic reminders. I actually do quite appreciate reading over what you all have to say to one another and also your questions and comments that are directed to me. Okay, um, I'm going to talk about something that happened last night in Portland, where I'm from, and where a lot of you became familiar with my reporting, which is on the violent far left extremism there. So, um, recently, there was a promotion for a virtual town hall event by an organization called the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, PCCEP. And that is a official city group committee that provides um, advice to the Portland Police Department as well as the Office for Mayor Ted Wheeler. This committee um, it's an official Portland organization, and they put together this event about responding to the how police responded to the 2020 BLM Antifa riots. Um, Part of me thought at first, what response? But that's unfair to the Portland police. There were 6 months of riots that happened nightly, every day for more than 120 days straight. Portland police did respond most of the time. The response was obviously inadequate, but I don't think it was the Portland police fault. I write about it in much detail in my book in the background, as you can see, Unmasked. There's a whole chapter on Antifa and what happened. But basically, the city government at that time passed a number of restrictions on the use of crowd control techniques. They also banned Portland police from cooperating with federal authorities because there was attack on both federal property, the federal courthouse, as well as county and city property, and of course, private property, businesses and homes. Um, the consequences from that entire year, the political and social consequences are still being felt now, and I'll never shut up about this. I'll keep talking about it because people are dying. Portland is still in the midst of that historic surge in violent criminality in Portland and also homicides as a result of the actions that were taken in 2020 to restrict Portland police as well as to delegitimize them. So there was defunding of the Portland police that happened, and then they were refunded because Portlanders weren't happy with that. And so the Antifa and the far left will say, like, well, Portland police have a big budget like they had before, so you can't say they defunded. Yes, but that's not the full picture. They have the funding restored, but they don't have the numbers. So what are you going to do? I mean, what that says is that as much as Portland police tries to recruit, they're not replacing quickly enough the number of officers that have left and are leaving, and that's left the city with a critical shortage of emergency responders to violent assaults, to robberies, to burglaries, to stabbings, to arson attacks. And who benefits from this chaos and anarchy is, well, the far left and Antifa. This is exactly the world that they envision. And so you should listen to them and take them at their word when they call for the abolishment of police and what vision that they have for a society. Certainly, their vision doesn't have room for law abiding people like you and I. In fact, they would like to be able to kill with impunity. And so, well, what happened at this virtual event? Let's see, here's the so the Portland police had, let me make this bigger. Okay. So Portland police had promoted it, and it was a virtual meeting, and well, I was there for part of it, and then I had been kicked out. So it was a Zoom meeting, and I didn't speak at all. Some of the people that were called to speak had spread lies on the record and to those who are on the panel, the experts on the panel who were there to listen to them. So in the chat section, I responded to some of these lies. One of the speakers was Kathleen Mahoney, who made all these allegations about the Portland police and brutality. And I called her out for spreading disinformation. She's a practicing attorney. I'm going to pull up her arrest tweet that I posted 2 years ago. Um, so here's what I wrote. Ms. Kathleen Mahoney, you shouldn't use a public forum to spread disinformation as a practicing attorney. That is unethical. I did not dox you. So that was the claim she made. And unlike in other states, Oregon actually does have a legal definition of what doxing is because they made it a offense actually in 2020, and they define it as a publication of personal information such as home address, names of family members, children, ad- address, obviously, address of workplace, I believe, is on there. It's pretty extensive. I did not dox her or dox anyone. What I did was I posted about her arrest records, which is a matter of public record and of public interest as well, given that she's a ACLU activist. She was charged at that time with attempted assault, resisting arrest, and several other offenses. Those charges were dropped. Go figure. Um, DA Mike Schmidt. Here we go. So she was one of the first speakers who spoke. This was my post from August of 2020 about her arrest. Yeah, so most of the people who spoke were people who were arrested at the riots or were there, and so they are not. Um, all their testimony should be um, analyzed through the context that these are ideologues who have a radical political agenda. And so their testimony should probably be taken with a grain of salt because they were dishonest then as they are now. Another one I called out is Andrew Tolman, who also made the claim, and I'll play you the recording as well, that I had doxed him. So there were a whole bunch of Antifa sympathizers and members who were furious that I was part of this public event, which anybody could have joined, by the way. It's just a link. And the PCCEP, that's the public Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing, had unlawfully then kicked me out and I could not join again. I tried to click the link again, but once you've been removed by the host, you can't rejoin. So this is a public city event. I'm going to remind you all it wasn't some private event on social media. It was a official Portland Gov event, and they removed me for no reason. And they allowed people who made threats against me in the chat to remain and people who impersonated me to remain. Um, I'll talk a little bit more about those who are involved in this PCCEP because then it makes sense because they have radicals who are part of this committee, militant extremists, those who were arrested at the riots. So these are the people providing guidance and advice to Portland law enforcement and the Portland mayor. This person, Samab Husseini, I love knowing that Andy cannot walk anywhere in Portland. So he makes a threat against me. Um, and then here it's them writing and acknowledging that there were impersonators. The original Andy was removed. So they allowed others to continue to chat to pretend to be me and say offensive things while using a username that was impersonating me. But I'm going to play some testimony that official on record testimony of people that were called. First, it's a problem that people were allowed to type in whatever name they wanted. So there were a lot of people who use monikers and pseudonyms. Um, but I know the identity of many of them because these are Antifa members that I've reported on before. So I'm going to play you, well, I'm going to talk about one first. So this person, Deidre Rose Watts, former legal name was David Villalpando Perez, of Vancouver, Washington, which is next to Portland. So this is from an arrest in 2020 at a riot. This person is trans, was housed in the women's jail section, identifies as a journalist, as a fake journalist. So she was one of the people who spoke at the event, and I'm gonna play you the her testimony. There is swearing in it, and she threatens a sexual assault at one point, and she was not removed from the meeting. Okay.
Hey, Rosa here. I've been a Portland resident since 2018. I've been brutalized by the fucking police force here. One, two, three, four. Okay, I lost count, but it's been a lot. Today I want to talk about the use of chemical weapons. What are chemical weapons? Well, there was a convention that actually it was 193 countries signed about the use of chemical weapons. Let's read directly from the opcw.org website. What does that say? A chemical weapon is a chemical used to cause intentional death or harm through its toxic properties. Munitions, devices, and other equipment specifically designed to weaponize toxic chemicals also fall under the definition of chemical weapons. So at the beginning of this meeting, I heard our independent LLC that's supposed to be monitoring all this stuff talk about the effectiveness of like the decision tree that was made. At what part of the decision tree is violation of international conventions supposed to fall? Because I'll tell you something. There's a lot of people here tonight that aren't testifying that are receiving 2-3 periods a month, missing their periods for fucking 6 months. There are people like me who had a horrible skin reaction and my eyes still haven't fully healed. I have a chunk of some fucking munition in my eye that blew up my feet for holding a sign. Fuck you, fuck the Portland police, fuck Ted Wheeler, and fuck this sham meeting. Suck my fucking girl dick.
Yeah, so she said, "Suck my effing girl dick," which is a threat of a sexual assault. I think if any man shouted that to people to perform a sex act on a genital, that would be treated as threatening and inappropriate. This person was allowed to remain. It's an Antifa member named Deidre Rose Watts. So, because of her politics, the organizers also supported. That was on the record, and it gets worse. There's more. So the next person is Andrew Tolman. I'm going to pull up his photo for you. Another riot arrestee from 2020, an ideologue and extremist. So he does sign language for radical leftist events. He's also been asked to do it for many official City of Portland events. I assume that they are probably aware of his extremism, but invite him to do it anyways. That's the certain privilege you get in Portland, is that you can have affiliations with far left violent extremist movements and groups, and this city will find that completely acceptable. Um, so this is from his mugshot and arrest in 2020. So during his uh, tirade, he lies and said I had doxed him. Again, it is not doxing to get the public records of the arrests that happen at riots in Portland. I have been criticized by some libertarians who say that they don't think that that's a good, that that's not, they think it's not a public interest. I disagree. And my reasoning for that is in Portland, you're not looking at a place where the rule of law is strong, that the presumption of innocence really means something. This is a place where if you have the correct politics, and by correct politics I mean left wing, far left, militant politics, you really won't be held accountable by the law for all manner of criminal activities alleged and actually perpetrated. And so the booking photos, also known as mugshots, is really the only record that of these people's involvements in these direct actions. And in fact, this so bothered the far left in Portland that they had their Democrat allies, lawmakers, pass a law that went into effect last year, the beginning of 2021. No, it went into effect the beginning of this year, I believe. Sorry. They passed a law last year that went into effect the beginning of 2022, banning the release of mugshots to the public and to media. The only times they will release it now is for if there's been a conviction. And in Portland, there usually will not be a conviction. Anyways, so Andrew Tolman, this is his testimony.
Interpreting that was started in the streets at the Abolish ICE movement here a few years ago, and has continued to provide ASL interpreting at the front lines of protests alongside deaf and hard of hearing protesters of all political beliefs in Portland and around Oregon and Washington for the last all political involvement for all people living within city limits, not just citizens, but people living here. The meeting not being accessible tonight is actually another example of that failure. Knowing that ASL interpreters would not be provided and continuing anyway, knowing that there are multiple ADA violations currently being prosecuted right now against the city is disgusting. I personally was arrested during the 2020 protests for interpreting on the streets while standing on the sidewalk, interpreting on Facebook Live. I wasn't doing anything except interpreting and providing access that your police force was failing to provide, giving warnings and instructions to people who could not receive that information and were brutalized and arrested anyway. I also had my information leaked to the internet and doxxed by someone in this group named Andy No, who did that to multiple other people. Again, I want to emphasize that my information was leaked to the internet and my personal information was doxxed because I was providing ASL interpretation.
Yeah, I'm gonna pause it for just for a second. That's what he just said there is a lie. It was not leaked. Perhaps he's ignorant about how the public records request process works. He can request the records of those who requested his information, and he'll see that my information is there. I requested his information through an official channel because at that time you could get the booking photos and the charging information of criminal suspects, which he was at that time. So there was no leaking.
When you did not. I am also a drag queen in this city. My name is Ann J. Tifa. That's right, my name is Antifa, and so should yours. Who is the community here when you talk about community engagement? Is it the queer people? Is it the drag queens? Is it the sex workers? Is it the disabled people? It's not. I work in this nightlife and none of those people know that these meetings even exist. When you want to talk about community engagement, you need to be involving the people who feel that they are left out because they don't even fucking know that these things are going on. Did you know that 50% of people who are brutalized by the police are disabled? 50%. And that's just according to the data we actually have. That doesn't include underreported and ignored information because of meetings like this that are inaccessible. I have lived here for 7 years, and the one thing that I've noticed is that regardless of what side you're on, people do not feel safe. And what is happening in this city is not creating safety. It is meetings like this that politicize safety, that politicize health, that distract from the actual discussions we need to be having. And if they are not accessible and they are not leading with disability justice, then they are not equitable, they are not equal, and they are not actually engaging the community. This is fucking ridiculous. It is fucking bullshit. Put it on record, I said so. Again, my name is Ann J. Tifa, and so should yours.
Yeah, you have people openly identifying with the violent extremist Antifa movement, a movement that the previous U.S. administration declared a domestic terrorist entity in the United States. Yeah, they declare it proudly, and to Andrew Tolman's credit, I do agree with him on a number of points he made, and I think something all of us could benefit from is actually acknowledging when detractors of the opposition make good points. And I think what Andrew Tolman said there that I agreed with is that it is wrong for the city to politicize a discussion about public safety. I agree with that. I assume he meant it a different way than the way I view it. The way I view it is that a radical leftist committee made up of people who, some of them have expressed support for political violence, some excused the violence of the 2020 riots, are allowed to be part of this committee, and that's inappropriate. And so I agree with him there. Yeah, and lots. There were many. The event went on for 2 hours. There were lots of narcissistic tirades and rants, and lots of people used fake names. They didn't show their faces. You have no idea if they were even from Portland or in Portland or had any connection to it. Um, and okay, let me see. So here's another testimony, and this is from a man named Timothy Swalls. I'm going to talk about him a little bit before I play his testimony. So he was one of the riot suspects from 2020 who was arrested and charged. He was charged with felony, some pretty serious charges here. Eluding by vehicle, reckless driving, hit and run, elude by foot. That case actually from more than 2 years ago is still ongoing today, and he's furious about it. He's one of the very few whose cases wasn't dropped immediately. But yeah, I'm gonna play his testimony from that event yesterday, and they're swearing in this clip.
Oh, I think okay. My name's Timothy Swells, and I don't have a prepared statement or anything, but on July 16th and 17th of 2020, I was at the Kelly building, and the Portland police deemed it an unlawful assembly, and I was standing on the sidewalk near my vehicle, and then I went and got into my vehicle after they chased the protesters, and I drove behind the line. The police didn't like that, apparently. I can't get into too much details, but what happened was unbelievable. I reversed my car, and I'm in the intersection, and the cop T-bones me. Who's the cop? Racist Colby Mars. Racist Colby Mars. Why is Colby Mars still a police officer? Because there's zero accountability in this city. Nobody cares. This cop should not be an officer. My vehicle should have never been T-boned by that racist officer. There's zero accountability. Then guess what happens? I get out of my vehicle because fight or flight, apparently that's part of being a human, goes into effect, and I'm going to the sidewalk, and guess who tackles me to the curb and calls me a fucking ape? He's no longer an officer. We don't know why he's no longer an officer. You know why? Because there's zero accountability. This forum is a fucking joke. You all know what the fuck you need to do, and y'all refuse to fucking do it. The question is why? I want to know why. And I'll give you time to answer why. Why do you allow racist fucking police officers in our city? There is no excuse. There's another reason there's no excuse is why they don't live in our fucking city. Why are you giving these cops bonuses when they don't even fucking live here? They don't care about public safety. And you know how I know they don't care about public safety? People that were shining green lasers in their eyes. Their charges are dismissed. But my fucking life for the last 2 years have been ruined with pending felony charges. For doing what? Obeying their fucking orders. Never being violent. Using my fucking voice. This is a fucking joke. And y'all better do something. Because let me tell you, you want to fucking see a criminal? I'll show you a fucking criminal. I've had it. Done.
Yeah. So that's about the quality of the testimonies last night at the public event that I was removed from with even though I didn't speak at all. Yeah, so the people who made threats of violence on record were not removed. I'll say that. Some of the people behind it, this committee, official city committee, well, understanding who they are helps illuminate their choices in how they chose to moderate this public event. One of the people who spoke is a PCC EP member named Ashley Schofield, um, pronouns she and them. And well, she was one of the riot arrestees in 2020. And this link here goes to the archive that I made at the time of the sheriff's office of her arrest record. Um, yeah, so she was charged with resisting arrest, harassment, interfering with the peace officer. The case was dropped by the district's attorney's office. But anyways, she's part of the team that put on this event. Another one that is also a member of that committee that put on the official event is Tia Palafox, and here she is justifying acts of arson. If someone killed my brother, I would probably want to burn down a building. When I read stuff like this, she wrote this in the chat yesterday, by the way, for the public event. I just wonder what vetting, if any, is there for official city committees when they invite these people to be members. I guess the only vetting that exists is that they express a certain radical militant leftist view. In fact, these type of views that we see expressed from those who are on the committee, that is the norm. And so this is not an accident. And like in what world is somebody who says that she would want to commit an act of arson, like burning down a building? People die in those type of acts, and there were multiple attempted murder attacks by Antifa in the summer of 2020 when they set occupied buildings on fire. It seems like these people, um, they don't think about what happens next after their actions. Like they think it's cool to throw the Molotov cocktail. It's cool to set a building on fire. Well, what happens next? What do you think happens next when a car is set on fire and people are inside it? What do you think happens next when you throw a Molotov cocktail and it lands next to people and they're set on fire? What do you think happens next when you set a building on fire that's occupied on multiple floors with people? That was something that happened at the Justice Center, by the way. So, um, I would say I'm disturbed by all this, but this is the expectation in Norman, Portland, and this is just one, meaningless virtual town hall event. But I go into detail here so that you can just kind of get a glimpse of what the politics are like in Portland. If you're wondering why do we have historic surges in homicides? Why do we have a public that tolerates such political violence? Well, you look at those who are the loudest, and this is in the sphere of an official city event. You can imagine how much more radical and extreme they are off the cameras. One of the people who made a threat against me in the public chat, I also found out, is a Multnomah County employee. Multnomah County is the county where Portland is. So this was during that same town hall meeting. This person here, Samib Husseini, wrote, "I love knowing that Andy cannot walk anywhere in Portland." And he gave testimony to this uh, to those experts on the panel, as well as the organization. And then I found out that he works for the county as a Justice Fellowship Program Coordinator. Um, and yeah, this is um, taxpayers in Multnomah County are his pay on Multnomah County are paying the salaries of these extremists who would actually want to see a lot of Portlanders dead. Actually, um, he is involved with the Oregon chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, also known as CARE. That's an organization that's accused by several Arab governments of engaging in terrorist activities. I would say it's an Islamist organization. They call themselves the Muslim civil rights groups. But what they do is they push for merging political Islam into American politics. In the European context, there's much more of that than in the US. But CARE is really at the forefront of political Islam in the United States. And in recent years, they've found common cause with the radical left and the SJWs. And so for now, they're working together. I think their goals ultimately are actually quite different, though. Political Islam does not look favorably on gender diverse expressions or homosexuality. And, based on what he said, it inspired others to make threats against me, Antifa. Here's this account. So Antifa tweeted out, Antingo was kicked out of the meeting, and then somebody wrote, wait, I always assumed Antingo lived in hiding, and that was why no one had solved him as a problem. You guys don't really just let him walk around, do you? Really? And then the response was, it was a Zoom meeting. So this is the type of violent extremism that's out in the open, and what I try to illuminate to the public and to you all. Okay. Continuing with the Portland topic before I get on. Oh, by the way, there's lots of those who joined late. Leave your questions and comments for me, please. I do get to them later on. It's an important part of the show. Thank you. So, for the midterms, the elections in Portland and in Oregon are actually pretty significant. There's some people paying attention. For what is a shock for a lot of people in the state of Oregon, the Republican candidate running to be governor, Christine Drazan, is actually polling slightly ahead of the Democrat shoo-in. The Democrat shoo-in is Tina Kotek. She's been in office for many, many years as a lawmaker, and in 2020, her top staffer was arrested at one of the riots in Portland, by the way. But I mean, a lot of Portland Democrats and leftists are just completely in shock that a Republican in the state of Oregon could be polling so well. Oregon, by the way, is a state where there's a supermajority for Democrats for decades. They haven't elected a Republican governor in about 40 years. So this is quite shock. The other thing that complicates this whole thing for the Democrat candidate is that even the independent candidate is polling almost at 20%. And she's a moderate, neither left nor right type of woman, somebody who realizes that the whole two parties model for a governor doesn't apply to her, and she's appealing to a lot of people too. So tonight's Thursday, tomorrow Friday, that would be the 14th of October. President Joe Biden is coming to Portland to help campaign for Tina Kotek because she's doing so badly. And yeah, Antifa have actually announced their plans for a direct action. Let me pull that up. Don't be surprised by that. Antifa are not supportive of the Democrat Party in principle. Often they will tolerate them because the Democrats provide cover to Antifa, but they view Democrats as part of the American political system, which they want to abolish and burn down. So here's the post by an Antifa account, PBB, Portland Police is announcing our direct action for us. See y'all downtown this Friday. That's being tomorrow. So yeah, there's going to be lots of street closures because of the president's visit to help campaign for Tina Kotek. Anyways, in addition to the gubernatorial campaign race, city council, Joanne Hardesty is running for re-election. She is seeking a second term. She is the far left Portland City Council member who campaigned essentially to be the first Black woman on City Council, and that message resonates with Portland because a lot of leftists in Portland are quite simple-minded in the fact that they see somebody who can fit in a token role and they'll support it because that's what being a good liberal means. Joanne Hardesty has been disastrous for Portland. She's a conspiracy theorist. She spread lies and disinformation. So when the rioting first broke out in Portland, Ted Wheeler was not in town. He was quite secretive about where he was, and this was during the pandemic, by the way, when we weren't supposed to leave our surroundings, but he did leave. And then it was revealed that he was dealing with the death of his mother. So he had a personal family tragedy. That's why he was gone. And during his time that he was gone, he put Joanne Hardesty in control for a couple of days, and Joanne put out a lie, a untrue conspiracy theory that it was white supremacists who were rioting when during the first night of rioting and looting that happened in downtown after George Floyd died. And then later on, that she made another lie that she said the Portland police were responsible for felony arson attacks and were using the arson attacks to blame left-wing protesters and to use that as a pretext to shut down their peaceful protests. Those were lies. The police chief, Chuck Lavelle, who's a Black man who was appointed recently at that time, actually called her out. To his credit, he said, look, this is a very serious allegation. What evidence do you have? You're accusing my men and women on the force of engaging in a really serious conspiracy. And when the press actually asked Joanne Hardesty for evidence, she didn't have any, and she was forced to walk it back. These type of lies from her have come to characterize her entire role in city council, to the point now actually where liberals and Democrats in Portland are sick of her. They are, shockingly. Like, she's just performed so abysmally. You know, she's called for she was the loudest voice in calling for the defunding of police. She continues to demonize police. And, she's polling around 24% behind the moderate Democrat candidate for her seat, Renee Gonzalez, I believe is his name. And I mean, how humiliating, to be, it's not just 10 percentage points behind, but more than 20. And anyways, at the city council meeting yesterday, which is a public event, it was in person in City Hall, there was a concerned veteran who came with a pile of documents. I'm going to play the video. And in his 3 minutes, he accuses her of having lied about her military record as well as her educational credentials. These were things that were lauded when she campaigned the last time successfully. So I'm going to play the clip.
Next individual, please, Keelan, item number 840.
Request of Philip Tobias to address council regarding the importance of honesty.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, City Council. Commissioner Hardesty, this is for you. 1 year ago, I emailed your office seeking clarification about some discrepancies I had found in your military service timeline. In that year, I haven't heard back from you. But I know you're getting my emails because I had emailed your office about a donation problem I had, and shockingly, you got back to me within a day. Well, on that point, I actually forwarded your records. I partnered with a nonprofit to get you military service records. In 2018, the Portland Mercury did, in their endorsement article, they said your campaign had gave them paperwork that said you were honorably discharged in 1979 before continuing in the reserves into 1984. All of that is a lie. So I'm just wondering what information you actually gave the Portland Mercury. But that's not the only misinformation I found. You've made, which part? You were not discharged in 1979. Well, let me finish my speech. So, but that's not the only discrepancies I found. On the city website and with certain in other interviews, you have said you served the board of U.S. Army Gompers from 1978 to 1983. As I said, I have your military records. That's a lie. You served the board for 13 months, from November for 13 months. And speaking, I'm going to move off the military records for just a moment and talk about your fake college degree, Mrs. Hardesty. On LinkedIn, you claim a college degree from Baltimore Community College. But on election filings, you admit in the 2018 election filings for city council.
So, Mayor, should I allow him to continue to lie on me on the public record?
May I finish? I can document.
Excuse me. Let's do this. You finish, and then the commissioner gets to respond. How about that?
I totally agree.
All
That's
right,
right.
so why don't you finish your 3 minutes? And okay, fair enough. Thank you.
So back to the fake college degree. On LinkedIn, Commissioner Harsey claims an associates in business from the Community College of Baltimore. But in the 2018 city filing for city commissioner, she admits that she dropped out and she does not have a college degree. And so I just think between these numerous lies between her military service record and her fake college degree, you know, she's misleading voters, taxpayers, and her customers or her business. And as a veteran myself, I find this highly despicable. And like I said, I tried to talk to Joanne. I tried to email her, talk to her privately about this. I tried to schedule a meeting with her scheduler to talk about this, and I was completely ignored for over a year. And that's why I had to go through the trouble of filing a FOIA request to find out everything she told the Portland Mercury was a lie, all of it. Thank you.
All right, obviously, Commissioner Hardesty didn't want to respond. We'll just leave it there.
Wow. So if you happen to just join in during that video, you're wondering what's going on. There was a city councilwoman who was far left, Joanne Hardesty, who was confronted professionally by a concerned citizen, a veteran in Portland, at the city council meeting yesterday. He had did a public records request, FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, on her military service record. And he accuses her to have lied and made false claims about what her service record actually was. And also he said that she had lied about her educational credentials. Now, Joanne, in response to that, walked out of the meeting. You can see. And Ted Wheeler, as the mayor, to his credit, I think he responded right, which was he said, let this person finish as they have the right to as a citizen. They have the 3 minutes. And Joanne can respond if she wants. Joanne chose not to. I think that should tell voters in Portland, well, there's a lot being said there without actually being said. So, okay. I wanted to bring some attention to Antifa activity in other parts of the United States. So Matt Walsh, who's the Daily Wire host and documentary filmmaker, news commentator, conservative news commentator, is currently on a university campus tour to show the film "What Is a Woman" and also to do Q&As with the audiences. Um, and his events have been targeted by Antifa. So just earlier this week at the University of Central Florida, there was an Antifa group that gathered. I'm going to play some video of that. This is recorded by Kaylan Dalmaida. He's quite great. Does great work. He covered the 2020 riots a lot. So you can see here, I'll just narrate a little bit. So credit to the police in, I think would have been Orlando police. Anyways, this is the University of Central Florida. Large number of officers were deployed to prevent these people from shutting down the event, which is what should happen. You see there's the Antifa flag there on the left. They also have the black and red flag of communism and anarchy. So they accuse Matt Walsh of being transphobic, a fascist, etc.
Fuck you, Walsh! 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 Fuck Matt Walsh! Fuck Matt Walsh! Get his stinky ass off campus! You're Walsh, you stupid bitch! You're a racist! They want to get out of here.
Yeah, so tonight, by the way, in Houston, there's another Antifa direct action plan against Matt Walsh. So at the University of Houston tonight, 13th of October, he's speaking. It's happening, I guess, right around now, actually. So Scruton Antifa, I put out this flyer, Stop Transphobia at the University of Houston, rally and protest, Thursday, October 13th. On Thursday, far-right bigot and transphobe Matt Walsh will be on campus. We must oppose his hate. This is their from their Instagram account. And so they also took credit, by the way, for showing up recently outside a far-left church in Katy, Houston, a church that was doing a trans bingo event for families to raise money for their transitioning clothing closet, which is a clothing closet where people, particularly children, can go in and get clothing that matches their gender expression. Now, I actually have nothing against that. I think the reason why I reject a so-called non-binary identity is the fact that being male and female doesn't mean that you have to manifest your clothing and your appearance in a particular way. You know, I'm a gay man who's at times in my life have dressed in ways that are not particularly typical of male menswear or male clothing, but that doesn't mean I'm not a male. My concern and actually issue with this the clothing closet that the church in Katy had for trans youth is that they also provided chest binding devices, chest binders, and those are dangerous and unhealthy. They can cause damage to the breast tissue. They can cause damage to the back and rashes, and they should not just be given out freely like that to children. And the only purpose they serve is to to flatten the breast. And people who are unhappy with their bodies should not be using devices to physically modify their appearance in a way that actually causes injury, particularly not children. Anyways, okay. I'm going to speaking of the trans thing, I'm going to talk about the British charity called Mermaids. There's an update on it. And Americans should really pay attention to this, by the way. So I've talked about this last week and in other recent weeks. In the UK, there is a very strong mainstream pushback against the radical gender ideology from both the left and the right. And I would say it's what makes the UK different from America. In America, it's mostly conservatives who have taken up that fight, whereas in the UK, it really is across. And I would say primarily is the left wing thing, traditional, old school leftists, women, feminists who have taken up the cause. So, Mermaids is a charity, recognized charity in Britain that transitions children, supports them in their transition. And they've been caught up in a number of scandals, such as recently one of their trustees was revealed to have attended a pedophilia support conference in Baltimore. Another scandal is that the organization was sending chest flattening devices to children against the children's parents' wishes and behind their back. Now another scandal has emerged that one of their staffers, who what was his role, digital engagement officer Darren Mew. That's his picture here. Is a pornographic model. One of the pictures that was posted on Twitter was of him posing with an erect penis. And I'm using him when the pronouns of this person is actually she and they. So, all around, there's failure at safeguarding people who are involved in sex work or pornographic work, people who are involved in pedophile support organizations, should not be around and advising an organization that works with children. This organization is currently under investigation right now by the Charity Commission, which is the governmental agency that gives charity status to groups. And that can be revoked, by the way. And the consequences of that are, I think, primarily tax stuff. But that's significant for an organization. So Mermaids, has been supported by all manner of celebrities, Emma Watson, Congresswoman AOC, you name it. So this is the latest controversy about them. Okay, I'm gonna get to some of your questions and comments. I don't think there are very many. Actually, go ahead and there's a few minutes left. Get them in. I'll talk about one more news item while you get in some of these last questions and comments. So in LA, if there's been huge political scandal in LA. So Los Angeles City Council is majority Latino, and there was a secret recording that was leaked of now the former City Council President Nuri Martinez and two other Latino City Council members saying quite racist and disparaging things about Blacks, Jews, and other people. And somebody in that meeting did a secret recording from October of last year, and it was just leaked. It was posted first on Reddit, and then it was shared widely. Nuri Martinez fashions herself as this BLM advocate. These are some old tweets I found of her. So she introduced a motion to cut funding to the LAPD after George Floyd died. So she wanted the police defunded. Here's another tweet where for Juneteenth, she talked about how Black Americans face racism, discrimination, and social injustices. I recommend you listen to the recording. I think, if Republicans had been recorded saying any of what these people said, like at one point they actually compared a Black child to a monkey using the word in Spanish. And Nuri Martinez also talked about beating that child. So it was, shocking. Is it shocking? I don't really know anymore. These are, you and I, me, and this audience probably knows of the hypocrisy of the mainstream left when it comes to race relations. The latest update is that, well, first, after the recording came out, Nuri Martinez resigned from as the president, but remained on the city council. And then the day after that, she resigned altogether. So, very, LA's huge city, and city council is a big deal there. Okay. I'm going to look at some of the questions and comments right now. Not very many. Let's see. That's okay. Sometimes, I guess if I explain things thoroughly, they may not be questions. I'll take that. Porky Logan 59 wrote in response to the Portland City Hall meeting, I seriously cannot understand how a public meeting could allow this. I don't either, but in Portland, it's clown world. You have people making threats who are allowed to remain, and you have journalists like myself who are removed. And it's unlawful, actually. But yeah, in the meantime, there's nothing I was able to do other than just watch back the recording of this public meeting, and those the rants that I played for you, that's going to be typed up and then presented in a document as advice to the Portland police and the mayor. Yeah. Nick Albertini wrote, remember that in Berkeley, California, where there was a lot of Antifa rioting in 2017 around over Milo Yiannopoulos, that they wrote, liberals get the bullet too. I wrote about that in my book. It's important actually to highlight because liberals and Democrats intentionally forget that Antifa are not their friend. I mean, Antifa is literally self-declared enemies of the United States. I would say they declare themselves to actually be a warring faction. And so they, Democrats are just useful idiots to them. And they are useful idiots. In Portland, the Oregon Democrats office has been repeatedly vandalized and violently attacked by Antifa. They did it before the November 2020 election and on the day that Joe Biden was inaugurated. So, and the Oregon Democrats put out a statement blaming the far right for it, like saying that this shouldn't have happened, but the real threat is the far right. That was essentially the statement. So they, in some ways, kind of invite it onto themselves. Nick also made another comment about Joanne Hardesty, actually, because he says lying about having an associate's degree is pretty low, LOL. Yeah, so apparently Joanne Hardesty did not complete the 2-year community college program that she says she did on her LinkedIn. I haven't independently confirmed that, but that is the accusation made by the very brave man at that city council meeting video. Amazonian asked a question. Andy, why do you insist on writing things like her penis instead of actually sanely in writing his penis? Number of reasons. One, I think on the when you're on these big tech platforms, they make the rules. And the rules of Twitter is that misgendering is not allowed. And what that means is, unfortunately, one cannot be truthful at times. But so I play by the rules of the platform. I think that that is a small sacrifice to make to get out a larger point about some specific incident or newsworthy item. So I know a lot of people dislike that, but I think it also kind of illuminates the world we live in, right? That we are required to lie to ourselves and to use language that's actually not accurate. So yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna mention again that I have a newish YouTube channel where you can see the live streams such as this one and prior older ones. Mostly right now, I'm going through the backlog. So it's Andy Ngo Live. If you type that into YouTube, you'll see it. And I have the full interview that I did with Nasuko Ganaha last week. I aired that. Now that's on the YouTube, and you can see other past live streams. Please go and subscribe there. I also have a website, but my link tree, by the way, which is linktree/AndyNGO, has like all the links. And please support me if you can. So I have a locals Patreon. Let me go to my website. My website is andy-ngo.com, and you see at the top here, the section about my book, articles, videos, and the donate. If you go there, you can see all the places you can donate directly on my site, which is run through Stripe, by the way. So it's very secure. I don't have access to any people's payment information. You can donate by Bitcoin if you like, and then the links to my locals Patreon, PayPal, and Subscribestar. I plug all this because, well, this entire live stream is ad free. It's completely uninterrupted, so it's more content. But then that means I'm not getting paid by advertising for sponsors or anything. But that's okay. This experience is about getting the news out, and I hope that for those who enjoy my content to go and support me, if you can, andy-ngo.com. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, and have a good Friday, Saturday, and Sunday weekend. I look forward to seeing you next week. I think some parting words. I feel like there's more I want to say, not necessarily about the news, but just like some things I've been thinking about. I actually found it really distressful to be part of that Portland town hall. It kind of it brought me back again to being around these Portland violent extremists who have really viciously targeted me, injured me over the years. And so I found myself quite distressed afterwards, and I've just been thinking more. And there's a lot of people who buckle under the weight of cancel campaigns, intimidation, harassment campaigns. We've seen it over and over. Like, some random mother, some random woman stands up against a trans ideology, and she's just faces such a vicious onslaught. Some small business owner. I think what I just have to say is to really to be brave and to be fearless, and to know that it will be hard, and you may be even isolated in that process, but know that there are people out there who, even if they're not able to be physically around you to express support those who stand up for the truth. And that's kind of how I got my start, was just going out with my phone to record these Antifa protests and riots, and I wrote about what I saw and what they were saying and what they did, and that's how I built my platform. And a lot of it has come with a heavy price. I've talked about that a lot, and a lot of people can't handle it, but I think keep yourself focused on the goal, and the goal should be truth. And that also means, by the way, when you get something wrong, that you apologize and to acknowledge it. And so okay, all right, thank you everyone for joining Weekly Notice, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.